Bienvenidos a todos, hermanos hispanohablantes. El presidente Donald Trump está recibiendo un fuerte golpe en el Senado, y el que lo está exponiendo no es nada más ni nada menos que Mitch McConnell, el influencer senador republicano. No te puedes perder esto, porque los republicanos y demócratas se unieron para interrogar a los altos mandos militares de Donald Trump y dejar al descubierto que está dando órdenes ilegales, reteniendo ayuda a Ucrania, pausando ventas de armas a Taiwán y priorizando su guerra en Irán. Te voy a explicar todo esto paso a paso de forma sencilla y clara para que puedas entender qué está pasando realmente en Estados Unidos. Los senadores republicanos unen fuerzas con los senadores demócratas para interrogar a los altos mandos militares de Donald Trump con el fin de exponer las violaciones de ley por parte de Donald Trump. Tuvimos a senadores republicanos como Mitch McConnell y el senador republicano Kennedy uniendo fuerzas con senadores demócratas como Coons y otros, interrogando a estos altos líderes militares de Donald Trump y exponiendo cosas como el hecho de que Donald Trump no ha enviado a Ucrania 400 millones de dólares o más, ya que estaban destinados para Ucrania, mientras que Donald Trump continúa eliminando sanciones contra el petróleo ruso. Estos senadores uniendo fuerzas, republicanos y demócratas, para exponer que Donald Trump se niega a realizar ventas de municiones a Taiwán. Los altos líderes militares lo llaman a una pausa por parte de nuestros líderes políticos, lo que significa que Donald Trump y Pete Hegseth, que es el secretario de Defensa, se niegan a entregar este paquete de municiones de 12.000 a 14.000 millones de dólares a Taiwán tras el viaje de Donald Trump a China. Esto parece uno de los entregables que Donald Trump probablemente le prometió a Xi Jinping, y sabemos que Xi Jinping se negaba a reunirse con el subsecretario de Defensa, quien se hace llamar el subsecretario de Guerra, el Bridge Colby. Xi Jinping dice: aclaren si van a realizar o no ventas de armas con Taiwán, porque si realizan la venta de armas con Taiwán, no vamos a comprar esos aviones de Boeing, ya saben, de Estados Unidos. Donald Trump, no vamos a comprar soya y no les vamos a dar tierras raras. En otras palabras, Xi Jinping atrapó a Donald Trump y demostró la total debilidad de Donald Trump, mientras que Donald Trump dice cosas como: oh, vamos a conseguir que Xi Jinping compre 200 Boeing. Bueno, se suponía que iban a comprar 500. Luego Donald Trump dice: China nos prometió como 20 millones de toneladas métricas de soya. Pero recordemos que bajo el mandato de Joe Biden, sin tener que ir a China o sin tener que negociar, China compraba cerca de 30 millones de toneladas métricas de soya. Por lo tanto, ya están recibiendo menos. Y ahora, Xi Jinping está usando esto para presionar más a Donald Trump. Y tenemos a estos senadores republicanos uniendo fuerzas con senadores demócratas en esta audiencia de subcomité para exponer lo que estaba sucediendo. Además de que Donald Trump está claramente actuando en contra de las obligaciones con los aliados de la OTAN, escuchamos a algunas de las personas de más alto rango en la Armada compartir esto con ustedes, donde dijeron: miren, de armada a armada, trabajamos bien con Dinamarca, Groenlandia y Canadá. No podemos controlar lo que hacen las personas políticas. Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, Elbridge, Marco Rubio, personas así, pero trabajamos bien de armada a armada. Y si tenemos los recursos, podemos seguir trabajando bien con ellos. Así que permítanme compartir con ustedes lo que ocurrió. Aquí tienen al secretario interino de la Armada húngara diciendo que los Estados Unidos están pausando las ventas de armas a Taiwán, todo esto debido a la guerra con Irán. Mitch McConnell lo está interrogando tanto como Mitch McConnell puede interrogar a alguien. Y él va y dice: este es un momento, húngara. El secretario interino de la Armada, en este momento, estamos haciendo una pausa para asegurarnos de que tengamos las municiones que necesitamos para la operación Furia Épica. Pero luego dicen que tienen muchas municiones para la operación Furia Épica, ¿verdad? Donald Trump y Pete Hegseth dijeron: tenemos demasiadas municiones, más que las suficientes. Y escucharán a Unga justo después de decir: estamos pausando las municiones para Taiwán para que podamos tener las municiones necesarias para la operación Furia Épica en el estrecho de Hormuz y en el Golfo Pérsico. Pero en realidad tenemos muchas municiones. Así que si en realidad sí tienes muchas municiones, ¿por qué estás presionando el botón de pausa en las municiones, el paquete de municiones de 12.000 a 14.000 millones de dólares que se suponía que iba a ir destinado a Taiwán? Escuchen lo que dice Unga cuando fue interrogado por Mitch McConnell. Miren, por favor.
To buy arms from us. And all of a sudden there's a pause. What are you hearing from the Taiwanese about the pause?
Chairman, I have not heard. I have not spoken to the Taiwanese. However, we have done some foreign military sales to them, and it's just right now we're doing a pause in order to make sure we have the munitions we need for Epic Fury, which we have plenty, but we're just making sure we have everything. But then the foreign military sales will continue when the administration deems necessary.
A continuación les mostraré el interrogatorio del senador Kennedy, senador republicano de MAGA de Luisiana. Esto es lo que le está preguntando a algunos de estos altos líderes militares, incluido el almirante Darley Cloud. También están haciéndole contrainterrogatorio al general Eric Smith, el comandante del cuerpo de Marines. Escuchen este contrainterrogatorio, por favor. Miren.
So why don't we go ahead? Don't you think it'd be a good idea for us to gain leverage to make weapons sales to Taiwan right now?
Sir, again, these things are very complex and a full calculus of all the levers of power that are being negotiated and worked. So generally,
I'm sorry. What more do we have to know, Admiral? President Xi has telegraphed his anxiety, his insecurity, now that he knows that America has learned how to fight. We want leverage. We want stability, not a hot war. We want leverage. What's his insecurity? Taiwan. Why don't we just go ahead and sell the weapons to Taiwan that Taiwan wants? The president can call President Xi and say, hey, President Xi, don't take it personally. Don't get excited. Don't get your bowels in an uproar. But I'm selling these weapons. Why wouldn't we do that?
we definitely want Taiwan to be as strong as they can be, sir.
They'd be stronger with those weapons, though, wouldn't they?
Yes, sir.
Don't you think we ought to sell them?
Sir, I'm not going to get in front of the administration's overall calculus on that. That's just not I'm not going to make a statement on that as a service chief.
Okay.
But the capabilities that we're talking about would make them more effective.
Aquí está de nuevo el senador Kennedy contrainterrogando al general Smith, el comandante del cuerpo de marines. Miren, por favor.
Thought he was going to roll in and take it over in 2 days like thunder on a summer night, didn't he?
I believe he did.
But the Ukrainian people have fought back, haven't they?
Yes, sir. They have fought back.
And they now have some of the most sophisticated drone technology in the history of the world, don't they?
Sir, they do. They're doing very well with drones.
And they're giving, with the limited resources they have, they're giving Russia a curb stomping, aren't they?
I would say they are.
In fact, they have knocked out, with their limited resources, 40% of Russia's export ability of their oil. They, since January, using their drones and limited cruise missiles, they have hit oil and gas facilities within Russia over 100 times. Not on the border, within Russia. Right?
Yes, sir.
And Putin was so scared, he almost had to cancel their military parade. Didn't he?
Well, I'm not sure of that, sir, but I will take your word for that, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, how much money? Now, let me just lead you. The world has $300 billion of frozen Russian assets in escrow, don't we?
I don't know, sir.
I do. It's $300 billion. And 2/3 of that, about $225 billion, is sitting in Europe, isn't it?
Again, sir, I'm not sure of that.
Well, I am. And I'm surprised, no disrespect, that you don't know. And Europe has asked our permission to take that $200 to $225 billion. Well, I mean, strike that. That $225 billion, humor me, that's sitting there frozen. Not a single penny is American taxpayer money, is it?
I don't believe it is.
No. It all belongs to Russia, doesn't it?
I believe that is correct.
And the
sir.
EU has asked our permission to take that money and give it to Ukraine so they can knock Russia in the next week and let's get this war over. That's a good idea, don't you think?
Well, I think anything that can be done to stop that war is a good idea, sir.
Would you support giving that $225 billion, no taxpayer money in America, to Ukraine?
Again, sir, that's outside my purview as a service chief.
Ahora, de vuelta con Mitch McConnell, justo aquí esto es lo que Mitch McConnell está preguntando sobre Dinamarca y la relación de Estados Unidos con Dinamarca. Miren, por favor.
Speaking of Denmark, after the suggestion that somehow we wanted to take Greenland, how are we getting along with the Denmark NATO member?
Sir, Denmark is a very close naval ally. We do a lot with Denmark. They punch way above their weight class, very sophisticated set of capabilities that they bring to bear. And I think our relationship with them is very close. They know that from a Navy perspective, how important Greenland is as key terrain and our ability to operate in and out of Greenland to protect the Atlantic GI-UK gap from out of area Russian deployers is extremely important. They know it's important from an early warning radar system to understand ICBM threats and other threats could approach our homeland.
So whatever concern there may have been, you think is blown over?
Sir, I won't speak to the political aspects of that, but I can just tell you, Navy to Navy, we're strong with Denmark.
Good.
Aquí tenemos más de Mitch McConnell preguntando sobre Ucrania, la capacidad de América para proyectar fuerza en las regiones árticas. Y escuchen lo que dicen algunos de estos altos líderes militares. Miren, por favor.
I know you guys are not policymakers, but let me say again that an effort to cut off help for Ukraine is not going to work in the Senate or in the House. We put in $400 million last year, and we had to embarrass the administration in public to get them to actually spend it. We're going to have additional Ukraine money this year. I would say to the policymakers at the White House and the Pentagon, the American people are in favor of us helping Ukraine. Republicans are in favor of us helping Ukraine. Democrats are in favor of helping Ukraine. We're pretty together on this issue, so we're not going away. One final question. What are the specific objectives of U.S. strategy up in the Arctic? What role will Arctic allies like Denmark and Norway play in achieving them?
Sir, I can address some of that. I'm a huge proponent of the Arctic. And my job at U.S. Police Forces, as the NORTHCOM component commander, I think played a vital role with the NORTHCOM team to enhance our presence in the Arctic. We do that in partnership with the European Command and Indo-Pacific Command commander. I kind of break it down a couple ways. One, it's important to have presence there. You got to walk the battlefield. So that means operating above the Arctic Circle consistently with surface ships, with aircraft carriers, and of course our submarine force. Second, you have to have special capabilities to be successful up there. That means communication systems that can work at high latitudes. It means systems on board that can handle those temperatures. And it means understanding flows of marginal ice zone and the weather conditions up there. They're significant, and the climate is quite something. And the third thing, you have to have partners and allies. And the Arctic Council team is that we all are part of NATO now, with the exception of Russia. So partnerships matter above the Arctic Circle. So Finland, Sweden, Norway, of course, and a big one is Canada, of course. And we do a lot of operations with them. We just came off our biannual exercise called ISEX, where we're just there with, where we do that every 2 years. We know the Russians want to actually, call it their own. They'd like a 9-dash line around the North Pole, and we're not going to let that happen. We know that China wants to call the Arctic a near, Arctic nation state. We're not going to let them operate up there without being contested either. And so it's very important. And this goes to what we're doing in Alaska and the recapitalization and the facilitization of some of the places we're working in with the senators from Alaska. This goes to collaboration with the Coast Guard and what we're doing to rebuild their ice-breaking fleet and how we sustain their operations. So the Arctic's extremely important. Trillions of dollars of minerals, natural gas, oil, and rare earths. And the United States has to have a presence there, sir.
Y luego, para mostrarles que esta fue una audiencia muy bipartidista, tuvieron al senador demócrata Coons como uniendo todo esto. Quiero que escuchen todo esto de aquí porque, de nuevo, no están viendo esto en muchos otros lugares. No creo que lo estén viendo en ninguna parte, ¿verdad? Y de nuevo, él repasa todo lo que creo que es tan importante en este momento. Como aliado a aliado, armada a armada, tenemos excelentes relaciones con otros países. Es a nivel político donde Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth y Marco Rubio están socavando todo esto y este presupuesto que se está pidiendo en este momento para que el Congreso lo apruebe o para que el Senado lo apruebe, ya saben. También parece no tener en cuenta cuestiones críticas de la guerra moderna, el uso de drones sobre los acorazados y parece ser simplemente una especie de juego de ego de Donald Trump y que generacionalmente esto puede causar un daño masivo. Necesitamos estar estar concentrados en esto, amigos. Y de nuevo, esto es, como he dicho, un asunto bipartidista. Así que por favor, escuchemos al senador Cons terminar esta audiencia, uniendo todo de manera, como les digo, bipartidista. Miren, por favor.
With our allies, we are strong. With our allies, we can project force. With our allies, we can deter China, Russia, Iran, DPRK. They are increasingly aligned, but we increasingly are not. I led a bipartisan delegation, a bipartisan bicameral delegation to Denmark the same week our president threatened to take Greenland by force from our NATO ally, Denmark. I appreciate your testimony, Admiral, that at the Navy-to-Navy level, we're strong. But their capabilities are not just terrific. Their service alongside us when we asked in Afghanistan was outstanding. And their sacrifice, as we come to our Memorial Day, we should not forget. 52 Danes died in service in Afghanistan. And as Senator Tillis and Senator Murkowski and Senator Durbin and I were there at the memorial to the Danes who served and died alongside us, we should not forget that when our president says we never asked NATO for anything and they never did anything for us, that's heard loud and clear by our NATO allies. I am gravely concerned that in the Arctic, where the Canadians are stepping up and investing, we're walking away from a decades-old partnership with them. In Europe, where Russia is the single greatest threat to our security and stability, we're putting at risk the trust that we've earned by abruptly announcing withdrawals of thousands of American troops in a way that is not clearly planned or executed. And the chairman referenced the $400 million. When the secretary was in front of us, he got asked by several of us, we appropriated $400 million last year for Ukraine. Has it been spent? No. When will we get a spend plan? Last week. Do we have it today? No. I know this is above your pay grade, but Mr. Secretary, I hope you will convey, as you've heard from many of us, from the first questions from the chairman to my last question now, you're submitting a budget that puts things across the line from base budget to reconciliation, munitions, shipbuilding, the LSM that is essential to your ability to fight and win in the Western Pacific. If the reconciliation piece of this doesn't go through, we are going to have even bigger problems this year than last. So let me just briefly ask about those two things. Commandant, how important is it that you have the LSMs in the year ahead, and what will you do if that does not come through in reconciliation? How will that impact your warfighting capability?
Well, we'll be less mobile. We'll be less able to aggregate and disaggregate, and we'll be less able to contend with the PRC.
And is the major adversary for whom you are currently planning and for which we are currently investing in the Western Pacific, the PRC?
It is, sir.
Admiral Caudle, we spoke before, and you've spoken now, about how the Ukrainians have demonstrated remarkable mastery of naval drones. And in fact, they've pushed back Russia's Black Sea Fleet significantly. What happens to the Navy if your significant munitions request, which is divided between reconciliation regular, is denied and you don't get those munitions? And what does that do to shipbuilding, drones, and munitions for this coming year?
Sir, that's why it's so important. You know, the way I put it into a context, my base budget is about $270 billion. About a tenth of that, 1/10, is in my mandatory. You know, so, you know, the way it kind of looks across the entire budget, it's like a third is over in mandatory. But for me, the Navy, a tenth of my budget is there. A lion's share is in discretionary. So, but I need both. To your point, I need both. And so to the specifics of the risk, as I stated earlier, it is an F-35 procurement. It is an LSM, no question. That's where all six live. And the risk of munitions and the risk in the FISRAM, we need to sustain our bases and our infrastructure.
So the reason I mentioned this in my opening, I'm mentioning it now, is that last year, the lack of coordination produced billions of dollars in what we call broken glass, problems that we had to fix because they were not fixed by the White House. And I recognize it's the White House, OMB, the Secretary's office that are making these decisions. But you've now heard from a whole series of senators, Republican and Democrat, that we've got clear priorities that we are at risk of not meeting. I also mentioned in my opening, I am really struggling, Mr. Secretary, with the Navy's headlong rush towards a Trump-class battleship. We have never previously named a class of ships for a currently serving president. In your opening, you referenced the Great White Fleet of 100 years ago, which helped project naval power for the United States. But I don't see how a new class of battleship at a cost of $50 billion over 5 years meets our operational needs at a time when most of our exchanges have been about how the lessons learned of Ukraine and the likely lessons being learned by the PRC are about the urgency of moving towards distributed autonomous systems. What operational problem are you trying to solve that isn't met by carriers and destroyers, submarines, and autonomous systems being deployed at a greater scale, Mr. Secretary?
Ranking Member Coons, I understand your concern, sir. As far as I can remember, just even looking at Popular Mechanics back in July of '88, it said the Battle Cruiser 2000, basically this large arsenal ship. When I was in UpNav in '96, the Surface Warfare Division in 2011, we had a requirement for a CGX, a large combatant. We've always had a requirement for a large combatant. The problem right now is the DDGs are completely decked out. The only ship with the Slick 32 Victor 7 is the USS Pinckney. It looks like this chipmunk with a cheek full of nuts right now because it's just so big. You can't add more to that ship. So we're looking at a large combatant in order to put those systems in there to have 200 VLS cells, to have conventional prompt strike, as well as the speed necessary to get from point A to point B. That's why we're looking at the nuclear power for that. I mean, look at the Ford. She was able to go from Venezuela to the Mediterranean in 5 days. That's what we need right now, to be able to bring an arsenal out there quickly with a lot of firepower and launch missiles and return back, sir.
If we look at just, look, in 1988 in Popular Mechanics, that might have been an interesting proposal. If we just look back at the abrupt canceling of the frigates, if we look back at the LCS and what's happened, we have a profound mismatch between ship design, shipbuilding capability, and our capacity to deploy ships at scale. I am profoundly concerned that this is a $50 billion boondoggle where the delivery timeline is a political timeline, not a practical timeline, and where the clear lessons of Ukraine and the clear threats facing Taiwan are not being well served by that investment. You've been asked by Republicans and Democrats, should we sell to Taiwan the weapons that have already been promised? I say yes. And you've been asked by senators, both Republican and Democrat, are we learning the lessons of Ukraine? And to show that we do, we should prioritize drones over massive battleships. My view is that Ukraine today is on the front lines of freedom, and we need to act like it. I carry this in my pocket every day. It was handed to me a month ago in Odessa by a Navy chaplain from Ukraine. We've got more lessons to learn from them than we have learned. And this budget doesn't, in my view, reflect that.
Bien amigos, acabamos de llegar al final del video. Por favor, déjenme saber qué piensan al respecto. Recuerden que para mí su opinión es lo más importante. Y también recuerden que si este video les gustó, les agradecería de todo corazón que le den like al video, ya que esto nos puede ayudar a que más gente llegue al canal. También recuerden que si les gusta el contenido de política estadounidense, les gusta saber qué está pasando realmente en el país, con pruebas y con toda la verdad posible, les va a encantar suscribirse al canal, ya que subo videos como estos todos los días. Nos vemos en el siguiente video. Adiós.